So today I am putting together a no batting quilt. You could also do this with batting, but because batting is US and in Canada, we're sort of boycotting all of that. And no batting quilts are actually really lovely. So boycott or not, this is a great method to do a quilt if you don't want batting in it. This is how I do it. So you can take bits and pieces and sort of put your own, version together on how you do stuff or what you incorporate. So a couple different things. One, if you use a white background like I have on here, make sure that your backing is also really light or it will shine through because there's nothing else there. You can also do a no batting quilt. You can put stuff in the middle, other things, sheets in the middle. You could put flannel in the middle. I don't put anything, so that's what I'm going to focus on. Now, one thing I do first is iron everything well. I know it looks funny on camera, but this actually has been ironed a lot more than it looks like through what you're seeing right now. And then basically I just roll it up from the bottom up. I just like to do it from the bottom up. So that way when I start the quilt top, it's going to be started at the top of the quilt top. And as I go, I find all these little straggly bits like here. Okay. And I'll clip all those off because the last thing you want is for a dark color to be pushed up against there like that when you're pinning, and that's going to show on the other side and you'll be like, oh no, and then you have to use a tiny little crochet hook to get all those out. So your best bet is to just go through as you turn everything up and clip off anything that you happen to see straggly. Okay, so that is rule number one. And I just use pins, and not a ton of pins, but I do use pins. So I will go on to the next part when I get to it. All right, so I'm just using a regular fold out table. My backing is good side down, and my top layer of my quilt is nicely sort of folded so I can roll it as I go. The back is just draped down. It doesn't necessarily need to be folded if you don't want to. As you go, you can smooth out as you go for sure, and also just make sure that you don't see any loose strings and any white parts, because if you do, you can easily get them out at this point. And then as I pin, I don't over pin, but you also don't want to make sure it doesn't move at all. So for this one here, like within a block, I've got two pins, a pin here, and a pin just to hold this back here. That's pretty much all I'm going to be doing for this whole one, so it's not overly pinned. And the other thing is too, is you don't have to leave as much space at the top if you don't really want to, totally up to you. I like to do it only because I hate binding, and so what I'll do is end up trimming this to about 1.5 inches, and then I just fold it neatly, obviously trimmed, and it'll just go over, and then you can just do a nice little stitch along there and your binding is done. That's my cheat level. But there we go. So that's the next step, and I'll show you when it's all pinned. All right, so I have finished pinning the whole thing. And what I'm going to do when I go to quilt it is, this here is my center block because I have 5 across the bottom. And I'm going to start on one of those. And so from here all the way to the top of the quilt right before the other border. And then just do all of those lines for the quilt and then go to my center block going horizontally. And I will just sew along all of those. And that'll be it for those big ones. And then I'll probably come back and probably sew in between here in each one, and that will be it for the blocks. And then I will go in and secure this border all the way around, and here this one here will stay, and then the binding will just go over that. And I think that's probably all the quilting that's going to be done on this quilt. You don't need to over quilt. It can just actually make it pucker and stuff worse. Depends on how much tightness you have on it, but I just find the larger quilting is better. And you can always go back and do some embroidery around flowers or add things to middles or whatever you want to. But it can be that simple. And I hope that helps. And I will show you when I finish. This is a using your backing as binding. Just a pretty quick video because it's not overly complicated and I kind of have everything out. My back I'm going to use for the binding, and it is a neutral on the back, but this quilt has so much color in it because Liberty prints are usually very, very colorful, so it just helps to tone the edge down a little bit when you use something a little bit more neutral rather than dark. So what you're going to do is it's pretty easy. When you do the quilt, make sure you have at least 2 inches all the way around. I have a lot more because these are the sides, but when you do the tops and bottoms, just make sure that you have enough to cut. go around and just chop these little ends off here, just because they can be a bit annoying. So just use a little pair of scissors and get those off. Remove any pins. I have one pin left in here just because it was stabilizing it. So anyway, just remove any pins and then basically go in. You don't have to use a long ruler or anything, but chop off, depending upon how big of a fold you want. This fold here is, let me see, it's about a 3/4 inch fold, and that is a 1.5 inch cut. So basically I'm going to cut 1.5 inches off the sides, and then you just literally fold to the edge and fold over. And you can actually do that as you go in the sewing machine, or you can go around and pin and clip. I clipped just so you could see. You can easily miter the corners as well, which is really nice. So I will do that. Usually I miter the corners to begin with, just so it's all set up and ready to go. And then you can adjust them as you go if you need to adjust them. And for stitching, you can either hand stitch this. You can do a straight stitch right on the edge. What I like to do is actually a blanket stitch, kind of like the same way I have the blanket stitch on the applique. I just, on my machine, I can reverse it so that it works as a binding stitch. And I'll stitch right along the edge here with the little bits going over. And it gives a really nice finish. And on the back, you don't have to worry about catching anything and making it look really, really super straight because, well, there's nothing there to catch. And you really, even if you're not totally straight, it's not really going to show. So that's really kind of nice. So that is how I do that bit. And I'll put this up on YouTube as well as on TikTok and on Instagram. So if you want to follow me on any of those, it's at Victory Stitches, and find me there. But there we go. Backing as binding. Pretty simple method to do.